How are you guys?
I am trying to think.
Don't hurt
of a
yourself.
word.
Wait, is Pee Wee's Playhouse coming back? Did I hear that somewhere?
I was never really into that show.
I love Pee Wee's Playhouse, mostly because there's a lot of word humor. And I think that was or you guys could blame Pee Wee for my puns, I think.
If that really is true, then I hope that you wind up in a jail cell right next to Paul Rubens. Because I'm sure that he's going to go back there at some point.
He's going to go back there on Daniel at some point?
Oh, hold on.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 205, a rap called Mirage!
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, is Daniel Kaiser and Gomez Adams.
Gomez.
That's right.
Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up? My gladiators of gouging! My bruisers of butchery! How art thou?
Yay. Really sold that one.
That sounds like a fun Friday night at Brent's house.
That's right.
Watching the movie Gladiator, which I'm sure you've seen. Are you a fan? Or
I am. I'm a big fan. It's one of Ridley Scott's best in recent memory.
But do you like it as much as the Addams Family film?
No, come on.
Oh, of course.
Home turf advantage, son. What are you talking about?
There you go.
Let me ask you a question. Does Gladiator have Raul Julia? Then it's not as good.
Deleted scenes, yes, I believe so.
DK, how are you doing this week, man?
Hallo, guten Morgen, wie geht's dir? Doing well. I was not in Germany this year for Gamescom, but I did break out the Lederhosen to celebrate, and I had more than a few pints of Pilsner. So I felt like I was in Germany, of course, sans all the giant plates of meat because I'm a vegetarian. But, maybe next year I'll be back at Gamescom. But the good news is we got a lot of good news, a lot of good things to talk about this week in both the gauntlet and the main topic. So I'm very excited for this week's EBC. It should be wunderbar.
Should be.
But then again, it could be like all the other shows we've done too. So.
That's very true.
All right, guys. Well, we have plenty to go through this week, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet.
Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we're here in the gauntlet, and our first bit of news is, most people probably have this as breaking news, but Grand Theft Auto is getting an online edition. GTA 5. Although it may be coming just a little later than some of us might have hoped. So, DK, you want to run us through what the GTA 5 online is going to look like?
Everyone's talked about this for a while, but with the timing schedule, this news came last week, right after we recorded. So now we get a chance to finally cover it. And like you said, Grand Theft Auto Online has been revealed by Rockstar. And here's what we know: it's going to offer a dynamic and persistent online world for 16 players that begins by sharing gameplay features, geography, and mechanics with Grand Theft Auto 5. Of course, I'm reading from the press release, but will continue to expand and evolve after its launch. With new content created by Rockstar Games and the Grand Theft Auto community, which is really cool. So the GTA community is going to have an opportunity to create content that will later be utilized within the world of Grand Theft Auto Online. As far as what you'll be doing inside of GTA O, you'll have the freedom to explore alone or with friends, work cooperatively to complete missions, band together to participate in activities and ambient events, or compete in traditional game modes with the entire community, all with the personality and refined mechanics of GTA 5. So basically, you have this vast open world that you'll be able to play in. You'll be vast amounts of customization. In the reveal video, they showed a lot of things about purchasing personal property, taking part in various missions, even creating some new things within the game world, some racetracks and some other stuff. So it seems like a very robust type of feature set, almost a game in and of itself. Some people saying it seems reminiscent of an MMO. The catch is that it's a free download, but it's not going to be available until October 1st. Of course, the game ships on September 17th, so I guess Rockstar wants to give us some time to get through the actual single-player campaign and get our feet wet before jumping into online. So,
yes.
What is your overall impressions of this offering, which I said is rather robust and seems almost limitless in its scope, but are you guys excited about this, and does it amplify your enthusiasm for the game as a whole?
Yes, and whatever your other question was, I'll go ahead and say yes to that too. Hopefully it wasn't anything
Yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't anything too serious.
We could fix that in post. Yeah.
My point is that I am very, very excited for Grand Theft Auto Online, and it is in fact a separate game. You know, Rockstar has intimated as much that it's coming free with GTA 5, but really GTA Online is going to be a separate entity moving forward. They're going to start off sharing a lot of similar feature sets, obviously the terrain of Los Santos and the surrounding county, but that GTA Online is almost from the beginning going to begin evolving along its own course. That, of course, is going to include that is going to include player-generated content. There's going to be races. There's going to be an editor for deathmatch arenas that you can use, and then obviously all the other customization and just sort of sandbox stuff that you talked about. I think that this could be the beginning of something really, really fascinating, as opposed to it just sort of being an online mode. Like some sort of deathmatch component, like Grand Theft Auto 4.
Sure.
This has got the potential to grow into something really, really interesting and unique. And I love the idea that there's going to be this ongoing and ever kind of changing and expanding game world that you're going to be able to take advantage of with your friends.
Does it bother you that it's not going to be available at launch, or is that okay?
No. And actually, I think that Rockstar said the reason they did that was because they wanted to give players a couple of weeks to play the single player game, to kind of ingest that world and to get a sense for what the game is like and how it plays and how it feels. Before they launch you on multiplayer.
2 weeks at this point too.
Yeah,
I mean, if it were coming out 6 months later, that might be a very different situation. But
I think it's actually like a really great idea. Yeah, like
I do too. Yeah,
we're trying to play Splinter Cell Blacklist in co-op together this week. And we're trying to coordinate this whole thing. It's well, how much do you want to play the single player before we do co-op? How much single player do you want to play? And I mean, it was a consideration for us. Yeah. How that was going to kind of work together. And so in this case, I kind of like the fact that it's just I'll concentrate on the single player game for 2 weeks, and then we'll move on to the multiplayer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good idea too. What do you think, TG?
I mean, the biggest thing about this to me is the possibility for the user-generated content. Because I mean, I think I speak for all of us when I say that the one thing I'm looking forward most to is building giant dead hooker car ramps.
Yes.
So I mean, I feel like there's plenty of fun
I just want to help
had with
name
that.
them. Actually.
What's that?
I just want to help name them if you build them.
What they're gonna have really terrible stripper names like this ramp is called Mirage.
No, it looks very cool. I mean, I think just the. I guess I don't know. I've already said I'm not just the hugest fan of the Grand Theft Auto franchise.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
not don't think that it's bad. Just it's not my kind of game. I don't know what it is, but something about the trailer just I didn't see what looked so amazing. They show the shots of you can have car races and you can go rob banks and stuff, and then they show you can play golf together and you can do it. And I'm going we've got separate games that do all these things.
But none of them are GTA.
Hear me out. But are those separate games not maybe better than the little miniature ones you're going to have in this? I'm not saying that it's not cool that they can do it all in this one world. Yeah. That is cool. But I kind of feel like it's sort of
but
I don't know.
GTA
It's like
is the
people
only
building
game
mini
where
games inside of Minecraft, where it's just kind of okay, I don't know. Just to me, why not just play a game where that's made to do the thing you want to do?
I feel the same way you do about the core game, but I'm actually more excited for I'm more potentially interested in playing GTA Online than the regular game for that reason, because if you get mad when you're playing golf, GTA gives you an outlet to just go run over somebody as opposed to Hot Shots Golf. So it seems so crazy. There's so many things that could happen, and like you guys are talking about the prospect of it ever expanding and becoming something. Like I said, I'm actually more interested in seeing the online component of this game than playing through the single player story, but it'll be interesting to see more media from it as it develops, but a very bold step forward, I would say, because they could have played it safe and implemented one of those types of kind of accepted or expected multiplayer modes, but this is a rather ambitious undertaking, I think, on their behalf,
to say the least.
All right, I guess.
Here's the disconnect I think that or here's where I see the disconnect between you and I on like the point you just made, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the social aspect of Grand Theft Auto up till now, because I didn't play multiplayer in GTA 4 that much. The social aspect was basically sitting on the couch with friends and doing things, in limited amount that that the game would let you do together. There was like a you could play like pool and stuff like that in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Like passing the controller back and forth, and
but now you get your own controller.
But is the thing.
I'm sorry. Now that you explained it, I totally see where you're going.
That the experience of like playing GTA with friends has always been like one person playing and other people sitting around watching. Mm-hmm. Now you can have a social experience where you're all playing together,
it's kind of
enjoying the sandbox that Grand Theft Auto is in certain respects, being able to explore the world, being able to get up to all this crazy stuff.
If the three of us wanted to meet up somewhere.
I don't say that I don't get what you're saying. I do.
All of
that. To be honest, I don't.
Or just going around and dicking around and playing golf or playing.
See, that's the thing I kind of think will happen. What if you are into the golf game?
Yeah.
And then while you're playing a game, somebody fucking runs a car across the thing and kills you and whatever. I mean,
it's not like a full on MMO. I mean, you're only in this world with 16 other people.
Yeah, and 16 other jackasses off the internet sometimes. Your friends can be jackasses. Anyway, I get what you're saying. I respect your opinion on it. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily as bold and changing. It just, to me, it looks like multiplayer Grand Theft Auto, which looks cool.
Yeah, but
that's
I mean,
cool.
like, but that's like saying I'm not really all impressed with this Cold Fusion thing. I mean, to me, it just looks like Cold Fusion.
So you really think that GTA Online is the equivalent of Cold Fusion? Okay, all right.
I think it's a much bigger deal than you're making it out.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we have a few details around the new Call of Duty Ghosts. Some of the new features that they're bringing to the table. Brent, what we got to look at here?
Well, actually, I guess quite a bit if you're a Call of Duty fan. So we've gotten some details on a lot of different aspects of Call of Duty. I think probably one of the more interesting ones is the Create a Soldier system. Mm-hmm. It's going to allow for a lot more customization than what you've seen in the past. One of the things that they've talked about is the ability to now customize a female character, which apparently I don't know, they didn't have before. But anyway, the Create a Soldier system is going to, you're going to be able to customize your weapon loadouts. You're going to be able to do the physical appearance of your character. As I said, you'll be able to have a female character. And, they're saying that there's like in excess of 20,000 combinations, between the different types of heads that you can have, body types, equipment, gender, et cetera, et cetera. You'll also, be able to customize a squad of, 10 unique soldiers, and they can be customized, in terms of appearance, perks, loadouts, style of play. Every custom squad member earns XP towards prestige. Yeah. So there's I don't know. There's quite a bit to this. Now they also talked about this dynamic maps feature, which I'll from the press release, this is what they say. Call of Duty Ghosts also features the evolution of multiplayer maps through dynamic map events. Mm-hmm. Player-triggered traps and events allow gamers to strategically redirect the course of battle, including the ability to call in a map-changing kill streak, which can completely transform or modify the map, delivering new levels of strategy and gameplay. And to me, that sounds a lot. That seems to kind of be answering some of the things, certainly that Battlefield has been playing up in their own series. And then,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think you're definitely right. I will say there are some differences. The ones in Call of Duty I think are more controlled. They're less dynamic. They're more controlled. But I gotta be honest. In practice, like some of the footage they've shown, actually kind of looks kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, more tactics employed on the map. So they're talking about like now you have the option to like do this gas station. It's going to blow up. It's going to change this. But again, like you said, more controlled in terms of in contrast to Battlefield 4, which I think is more dynamic actually in terms of how the environments actually shape are shifted based on explosions and what you decide to do. But That being said, the big thing I do think is this one of the big things is that the squad, the ability to have 10 different characters that you're customizing and building up so that no moment spent in the game is actually wasted, and you're always tracking your progression. This is the big thing with them, keeping your progress, tracking it, moving it from even one platform to the next. And one of the big things they did say was that if you buy the PS3 version of the game, you'll be able to get the next gen version for $10 on the PlayStation specifically. They talked about that. So yeah, I mean, I was expecting a lot. I think they had this big event in Los Angeles. They did the multiplayer reveal, and everyone was there, and they had the first ever multiplayer match, and it seemed a lot like, traditional Call of Duty. They talked about some new modes, that crank mode, which, actually, I already think Call of Duty is ridiculously fast, and now this crank mode, makes things faster with every kill for 30 seconds until you basically explode if you don't get another one.
In your defense, though, you're usually high.
Yeah, that's true. No, but the bottom line is, this didn't do anything to make me as a non-Call of Duty player say, oh my gosh, I have to play that. But what I think they have done is really think about the Call of Duty experience for those who love it. And let's face it, there's a ton of them, and how to amplify that. I don't think I get the sense that it's like that next gen leap that we would think this is they're saying this is like the future of multiplayer and all that stuff. It seems like the natural evolution of Call of Duty. So take it or leave it kind of thing. But it usually takes an iteration or two to really reach those next gen type of dynamics, because they are, cross generational with this effort. So if you're a COD fan, it seems pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely evolutionary, not revolutionary. I mean it looks cool. Again, I think Brent said it perfect. If you're into Call of Duty, this it probably looks pretty cool to you. One thing, there's a couple things with the game. I think the dynamic things, I like it. I've always felt like Call of Duty was, if you kind of break them down, and granted it's very simplistic, but if you said, I think Call of Duty is a little more arcade. It's a little faster pace. It's a little get in, get out. It's a lot more. I don't know. Just it's a more arcadey type experience in terms of the gameplay. Yeah. Whereas something like a Battlefield 4 is a lot more simulation. So that way. Mm-hmm. I do think the dynamic events look cool. I don't necessarily know that, again, not revolutionary, just kind of interesting. The create a soldier thing, I mean, to me, just looks like create a class, except it's just got way more options to
and girls,
and you can be a girl now, which is
yeah.
Call of Duty players have access to women.
Yeah, yes. There you go.
I heard they were going to change the name to Call Her Duty.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I can't imagine why that would be.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Call of Duty, but we also got a little bit of news as well for Battlefield 4, one of the other big titles going to be out the end of this year. So they have announced their Premium Edition, which is kind of sort of similar in the Battlefield 3 Premium editions that they did. DK, what are you going to get with this? What kind of access do you have, and do they have any other surprises for us?
Actually, really good access. $50 is the cost of becoming a premium member. This announcement took place during the EA press conference at Gamescom, which was kind of underwhelming on the whole. It started off with The Sims, and they talked a lot about Plants vs. Zombies and cool stuff, but it wasn't that like, oh my gosh, in your face type of thing that you would think out of a Gamescom type of presentation. But this was a highlight. They did talk about Battlefield 4 Premium, which, like I said, is $50, but it grants you access to basically 5 digital expansion packs that obviously feature new multiplayer maps, new in-game content, and you get 2-week early access to those 5 packs. You're going to get new content every week. You're going to get 12 bonus Battlefield 4 battle packs, plus the ability to transfer Battlefield 4 Premium membership from the Xbox 360 to Xbox One, and of course PS3 to PS4. So lots of content. The China Rising experience, the Second Assault, which basically has 4 of the Battlefield 3 maps that were the most popular, reimagined with Frostbite 3. That's available on Xbox One first. But the other ones, like I said, China Rising, Naval Strike, Dragon's Teeth, and Final Stand. So lots of content, access to it early, plus, customization options exclusive to this premium membership, including emblems, dog tags, camos, paints, and the like. So if you're a Battlefield 4 fan and thinking about going to that next level, this definitely offers something pretty rich experience. Do you guys think, though, that it's something that gets other people on board, or is this just for the hardcore of the hardcore?
Well, I think that, can you guys hear that?
No.
It sounds like Lauren Baumgarten's credit card begging for mercy. I think that this is, in general, this is for the hardcore of the hardcore. I mean, Lauren's probably already bought this somehow. But I think
he is Jewish.
Well, I mean, he'll find a way.
He's rather shrewd.
My point is that I think that this is for the most dedicated. This is for the person who knows that Battlefield is their fucking franchise, and people like Lauren who probably did Battlefield 3 Premium and know that every single thing that they can get their hands on to enhance their Battlefield 4 experience they're going to want. And if that's the case, then doing the premium pack makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I mean, this is just for the people that want the map pack updates. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a smart play. If you know that you like these games and you're going to be playing them, and that you're going to end up spending the $5, $10, $15 for each one of these map packs that comes out, do the math. It's going to be cheaper for you to buy the premium, get them all, plus the extra content. I don't
getting
think
them
it's
early too. I think that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, no, that it is definitely, and especially if you're, because for the crowd that is into this type of game. I mean, it is kind of, it's almost like a little mini launch every time a new pack comes out, because it's gives you this new content, because you've been playing the same. Because that is one thing about these kind of games, you're playing those same maps over and over and over, and so it kind of mixes it up a little bit. But
they say new content every week, which is pretty big.
What's that?
New content every week, which not necessarily maps every week, but to have something new every week is kind of big.
Yeah, although I think sometimes that actually makes it less special, because then it's just like sometimes it's
I
just
agree,
it's
because
just one, like you get a new gun upgrades that
Pants.
1 week. That's just sort of like But anyway, I don't know though that it's necessarily just for the hardcore of hardcore. I think it's just for the people that know that they're going to be buying the map packs, which I don't necessarily think always is the hardcore. They're just the people that they play that game, and they're going to know they want it. But yeah, I think it's cool. I think it is definitely interesting, and I actually will be really excited to see the beta that drops in October, so kind of give you a little bit of a taste for what we'll have coming up. I gotta admit, there is something that this story brings up that we've already talked about a couple times. The whole getting it on PS3, upgrading to PS4, or moving your content over.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this is going to be the one and only year that has any merit whatsoever. Like right now, maybe kind of a cool idea. I don't really see it being anything that lasts that long. Like it's just kind of, and even now I don't really know like who's going to be buying Battlefield 4 on the PS3 this year, that once they buy the system they're going to get that game. If they're not buying the system at launch, they're going to get it 6 months down the road. They're going to probably be getting other games. I don't know. It sort of seems like a slightly weird. It's a cool feature. I mean, it's neat.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
I'm a little surprised that they're touting it as much as they are.
Making such a big deal about it. I think it's just one of those situations, a rare circumstance in this generation, particular to this generation, because
this year.
Yeah. Well,
not really. I mean, I don't think it's even this generation. I think it's this year. Like by next year, when the consoles are kind of starting to be more out there, I don't see any people.
Well, that's what I mean. This transition, like when you look back, Xbox to Xbox 360, PS2 to PS3, that wasn't really on the minds of a lot of people, because it wasn't really a lot of the games didn't include all that stuff.
Ongoing downloadable content.
Exactly. So and probably by the next generation of consoles, it'll just be wired into your brain anyway. So who cares?
All right. So last but not least, we've got a little bit of news of another big franchise that's coming after this holiday season, or at least at the end of it, I guess, however you want to look at it. Thief is going to be coming out. What kind of details do we have around the new Thief, Brent?
Well, we've got release dates, so we know that Sheaf. We know that Thief.
I hope they don't call it Sheaf.
So we already know the release date of a game that's coming out next year. We still don't know when the Xbox is coming out.
So Thief is going to be making its debut on February 25th. 2014 in North America, and February 28th in Europe. We also got to look at the box art for the game, which I don't know. I was kind of excited then, because I know you and I both really dug that moment from the teaser trailer, where he reaches out and grabs the logo like right there at the end, and it's sort of emblematic of that. Very simple, very kind of stark artwork in the sense that it's not like really busy, and it's not like covered up with a bunch of different graphic art and things like that. It's pretty interesting to look at. So anyway,
and a new cinematic trailer.
Exactly. And we also got a new cinematic trailer that debuted at Gamescom, and we just got yet another peek at this game, which I don't know. I remain steadily interested in. What do you guys think?
So here's where I stand. if there's ever a case of them doing too good of a job promoting a game,
It's this one.
it's this one. I can't tell you how much I want this game to live up to my expectations. I can't tell you that I love the box art. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. It's simplistic, yet just, I mean, as far as box art goes, it's great. The CG trailer from Gamescom, amazing, awesome. Reminded me of Deus Ex in its cinematic nature, but also parts of Dishonored and other things just with the layout and everything we've said about this game from the beginning. The whole parallel of, this ongoing background story of this, hierarchy stealing from the poor to make themselves rich, contrasted by this individual thief who kind of does the same thing. You could tell it's set up for a great story and it's going to be awesome. And the cinematics in the trailer are fantastic. Everything is well put together. The problem is, I played it at E3 and it sucked. So that's the problem. But the good news is they have plenty of time to get that right, because everything that I've seen about this game, it seems like exactly what you want. They're putting the expectations up. And when I say the cinematic trailer might be too good, it's because when you watch that one from Gamescom, you're putting yourself into that role. It's like everything from the way his arms open the door to the way he lands when he, jumps off of a high ledge or something, to the way he, is pursuing people down hallways. It's all like, I want to do that in the game with this ambiance and with this atmosphere. But when I played the demo, it could not have been more mechanical and just kind of not infused with all of that personality and feeling. So here's to hoping that this game lives up to expectation and that the very capable team at Eidos Montreal has an opportunity to fulfill the vision for this game that has obviously been depicted here in all of the presentation that we've seen thus far, because I would really hate for my hopes to be stolen on this one.
I was about to say
that was
something.
A last minute
stole my
one.
thunder there.
Oh, but I don't know, Tony. Are you excited about this one or what?
Not really. I think that the trailer they show looks awesome. I don't know what it is. I was never a big fan of the original series. I do think that this kind of has an interesting sort of, I don't know, like it sort of feels slightly in the vein of like the recent Tomb Raider kind of reboot that we saw last year, in the sense that I think it takes like a franchise that is fairly well established, not as much so maybe as Tomb Raider, but fairly well established, and is giving it kind of a bump into the current gen and making it just a bigger, more robust world and everything. I don't know what it is though. I'm definitely not feeling it as much as I think is the excitement level you had even prior to your having played the game.
Yeah.
But it
like
looks
I
cool.
said too,
I have a lot of hope that that it does those problems you have fixed. That does suck though that it was that sort of underwhelming, because sometimes it worries me if something is that underwhelming. I don't know like how much the game has to change for it to. I mean, you have to have like Microsoft levels of change to
I think
bring
it's
a game
things they
back
could
from
change
that.
Because again, like I said, so when playing a demo, it's like you go to the edge of something and it's like you just fall down. It's like none of that like feeling of momentum and weight. And then the AI was pathetic when I played it. It was either way too aggressive or way too stupid, and it just did not come across like, wow, this is a great game. The lighting was pretty nice. Other stuff, little facets, but I think the best and worst thing Thief has going for it is Dishonored, because Dishonored proved that a game with this kind of setting and stuff like that would go over really well, because a lot of people love that game for, like I've said before, but it also kind of set the bar in a place to where, Thief could easily trump that with all the development time that they've had and having it as its inspiration and also having next-gen platforms. So I think the expectation for a lot of people coming off of Dishonored is to do a better version of it set in the world of Thief that's more focused on stealth and less on the, the supernatural stuff. But I don't know, man. I just really hope they get this one right.
All right, guys. Well, we are in the main topic this week, and of course, the big news. This is sort of like after E3 type news. We've got the Gamescom info, and we've had a lot of kind of new, interesting information that come out of basically all the big guys. But we're gonna focus mostly on Microsoft and Sony. Microsoft, I think, came first this year. Daniel, will you take us kind of down the line of what they announced? When's the Xbox One coming out?
We don't have a release date. People were expecting that big announcement. It did not happen.
Oops.
We still know. We have a general idea based on what we'll talk about with Sony in just a few moments. But here's a quick rundown of the highlights from Microsoft's presence at Gamescom. First and foremost, they announced a European pre-order bonus for the Xbox One, in which anyone who has already pre-ordered their next console or pre-orders it between now and launch, whenever that is, will get a free copy of FIFA 14. Big deal for that region where football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, is king, a part of the culture. Obviously, FIFA has a huge presence in Europe, and something where, to announce that at Gamescom was a big deal. Also trying to kind of counterbalance the fact that the console will be more expensive than Sony's PS4 when they launch. In addition to that, I'll run these down and then we can talk about Microsoft before moving on to Sony. Fable Legends was announced, which is a brand new game from Lionhead Studios, something I have begged for on the show for a long time, that includes 4-player co-op plus the opportunity to be the villain, to be the enemy in this game through a unique mechanic that lets you kind of mess around with the heroes. It seems almost kind of strategy-esque in how you kind of direct hordes of enemies at them when they're trying to, do their thing as heroes. The game is being built with next-gen technology. It's for the Xbox One exclusively, and I have to say something that I'm extremely excited about that I'll talk about more once we get into the details. Beyond that, Rise Son of Rome added a gladiator co-op mode and talked about its key combat features, which they kind of, addressed a few things people have talked about since we first seen Rise, but basically the gladiator co-op mode is going to provide, a co-op mode where you basically, go into
where you play in cooperation with other people
to kill one another, basically. Beyond that, Ubisoft announced Fighter Within, which leaked early due to the website going live. Somebody got fired, I'm sure. But Fighter Within is a Kinect-based fighter that is supposed to really make you, take advantage of all the next-gen Kinect stuff that we've talked about. Need to see it, need to experience it to believe it, but that was the announcement. And then they released kind of their launch day lineup with this, which is about 30-something games, and also talked about supporting indie developers a little bit more through a new initiative that they're going to prioritize people who already have, street cred within the world of indie, but they're going to be supporting indie developers as well. So that was Microsoft. Before we move on to Sony, what are the highlights from you guys? And did they do what they needed to do at Gamescom 2013 to not only win over the European audience, but the world, the global gaming masses, as it were, in general?
I don't know. I don't know if what they did at Gamescom is ultimately going to make all that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. I feel like they did a good job in terms of they had several things to talk about there that they were either exclusive to the console, like Fable or Rise, or things that were really great value adds for the console, like the FIFA giveaway, or the FIFA bundle, I guess. I think that although I'm not interested in the series as much as you are, I have to say that Fable Legends actually really did get my attention, talking about the co-op with the ability to essentially play as the villain, and how playing from the perspective of the villain...
that appeals to you, Brad.
Yes, I can't imagine how. But playing as the villain involves this almost strategy kind of, like I assume, kind of real-time strategy mechanic, where you are basically commanding villainous forces. You see the hero sort of coming into your region, and you start throwing your minions at them, and you can choose what kinds of enemies that they're going to encounter and where they're going to be staged in order to take advantage of the terrain or surprise them, or whatever the case may be. And I have to say that is something that I have thought about for a long time, that I wanted to see a game do. I've wanted to see a game find a compelling way to as opposed to relying on NPCs to sort of provide the the endless supply of red shirts for the hero. It's kind of like
orcs must die, but with people.
Right. I've longed to see a game. I've longed to see a game find a way to have actual human players on both sides of that equation and make it a really compelling experience for both of them. I don't know if Fable will accomplish that goal, but I really applaud them for trying to do something along that line, because I find that dynamic really interesting. As far as the Rise co-op multiplayer thing, I also have to give them some kudos, because I think that the whole notion of this co-op thing basically taking place within the Colosseum in Rome, and how it will dynamically change the environment, and based on the Colosseum and from historical accounts, we know that happened, not to the degree that you're seeing in the game, but we know that they were able to reconfigure the Colosseum to stage different kinds of scenarios and battles, whether it was historic fights that they were depicting, or just something that was done for aesthetic value. But anyway, I think that is like such a fantastic idea, and the idea that they are taking advantage of this real piece of history and building out a co-op multiplayer that allows them to do almost anything that they want, but still retain the core of the game's narrative and setting. I got to say that it's really clever. It's really clever, and I was really impressed with that. Fighter Within, the little teaser trailer, pretty much the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely the most uninteresting way to debut your game ever. I predict that this is going to be...
And again, associated with Kinect. This goes back to the Kinect argument. Like,
this is
I don't know.
Well, I'm not even talking about that. Like, I'm just talking about like what the teaser trailer kind of says the game is going to be. I'm like, this is an instant launch day failure. This is that game that is going to come out on launch day, and people are going to play it because there's nothing else to do, and it will be forever remembered as the worst experience you ever had with your new console. Yeah. That's my prediction.
Fair enough.
What do you think about? I have a couple of things to say about them, but what do you think about Microsoft's presence at Gamescom, Tony?
I mean, I thought they did an okay job. I think that there's... I don't know. I think there's a little bit to be said for the fact they didn't announce a release date. I know it's probably a simple thing. Frankly, I think almost everybody. We'll get into it a little bit more later, but I think everybody has the window it's going to be in. It just sort of seems like something that just at this point we should know. I mean, we're 2 months out, right?
Yeah,
3 months out, basically. And anyway, I was a little bit concerned with that. I also did feel that the titles they're showing. I don't know. There's not some stuff that they're showing to me that's really making me just excited for the system. Rise to me looks okay, but it also looks a little, I don't know, just does not look like system seller type of game to me. You look at something like the Fighter Within.
Looking back, did like the first Uncharted game? Did it have like that? Oh my God, this is the game that's going to like define this console in this generation. But
I don't know that it's really more the second one that really kind of pulled that to where it was, right? Like I think if it had just stayed with the first Uncharted, I mean, it good game, but I don't know that it would. It took the series in that direction, and maybe maybe that's the thing. Maybe this is the beginning of a series that we'll come to love. But what I was going to say though, that I do think that was also sort of announced. Right around there, they didn't necessarily say it during the show, but it was brought the same day, is the launch day lineup of what they've got coming out. And there's two things I think is interesting about it. One, I do think in comparison to Sony's launch day lineup, I think it is a bit stronger. They have more exclusives that are more
exclusivey.
But there are, I mean, the vast majority of like the games that I want to buy are available on both systems this year.
Yes.
There's not really any games, that I'm super excited about.
What are the exclusives? What are the exclusives that really define them? You've got Shadowfall.
You got Crimson Dragon,
PS3.
Dead Rising 3, Fighter Within, Forza, Killer Instinct, Local Cycle. I'm not even sure what that is. Rise. I don't know if Peggle 2 is exclusive or not, but that could be.
I'm going to go ahead and venture a guess that it doesn't really matter.
I'm just kidding.
And the exclusives on the PlayStation side are what? Knack, Killzone Shadowfall, Drive Club.
I think that's it. Those three.
Yeah. I remember thinking the same thing. I remember reading through the Xbox lineup and thinking that it was a little bit stronger. But I mean, like the launch day stuff that I want mostly is third-party shit. Which
exactly.
Really
it's available on both. I mean,
it'll be interesting to see, if those exclusive titles really do make a big difference initially at launch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't know. Good.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I mean, like, well, here's where I stand on the launch date thing. my question is this: if you didn't announce it at Gamescom, when the hell are you going to announce it? Like, there's no other events between now and November of that magnitude. He's just going to put out a press release and just do it. So I mean,
that's the way they've been doing their entire launch thing has just been odd,
just
weird.
Wonky,
I mean, like,
it really has been mishandled.
Every week there is some tidbit of information, and it's either some cool bit of information or some reversal of something they've already done, or some change in policy. Like, I mean, it's just been. You could argue that it's not necessarily a horrible idea because it does keep them constantly fresh in mind because there is something new coming out. And I will say, there's something to be said for that, because I actually kind of think Sony has been maybe arguably a little too quiet while some of this is going on, because I think they've kind of lost a little bit of that steam they had coming out of E3. And we'll talk about it here in a minute. I'm not really sure they did themselves too many favors here this year either, or at Gamescom.
Well, but they did what they needed to do. Well, just to wrap up that, the launch day thing, I think, was necessary at Gamescom. They needed to use that as a platform. This is like one of the last big spectacles before both of these consoles hit, and they had an opportunity that they just did not take advantage of. So we'll find it out. It'll come via Xbox Newswire or whatever, and there'll be a day when we wake up and it's like, oh, okay, so I guess they announced the release date today, and then there you go, you have the information. But I will say this, out of everything that was there, Fable Legends is the only title that I have seen in all of next gen that was the first time I was like, okay, I actually think I need to get that console now, just because of my expectation levels behind that game. Like you guys said, I'm in the same boat. Everything else for me next gen that I want to play, whether it's Dragon Age or Thief or Watch Dogs or Destiny, that's a big one for me. Everything is cross-platform, right? So this was the first time I was like, okay, that's some cool stuff. And that, until I actually saw some stuff at the PlayStation event, particularly like the Vita stuff, some of the stuff they were showing was good, but we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, on the whole, to evaluate Microsoft and Xbox, I mean, I think they did, again, just barely what they kind of needed to. I do think the FIFA thing was big. That got buzz generated, people talking about the console. Yeah. That was huge.
For Europe.
For Europe.
I mean, and no offense, I mean, but we're in America. That was huge news for Europe.
Yeah, I anticipate they'll do something similar, though. I mean,
no, they won't. No, the only reason they're doing it is
to compensate for the cost.
Price. Yeah, the price of the system in Europe was frankly ridiculous when you take into account the conversion rate. I mean, it was overpriced, and it's sort of, again, I just, to me, I'm not. It's big, but it's also almost a slap in the face. It's like, okay, no. We're not going to charge you less for the system. That's a bit ridiculous. I tell you what, we'll give you a free game. All right, will that shut you up?
I think that. I mean, value adds do matter. I mean, those kinds of things, do sway consumer opinion and spending. So, while I agree with you that it's not as straightforward as lowering the price, I do think that it will make a difference to people. And as popular as FIFA is over there, I think that they could have done a lot worse as far as what they were going to bundle.
Although, seriously, you can still buy the PS4 with a copy of FIFA for cheaper than you can get. Yeah, now you won't get the wonderful Kinect sensor.
There's no getting around that. But yeah, so.
Well, let's talk about Sony. So Sony had an opportunity following up on the Microsoft event, just like E3, to kind of steal the show. And drumroll, please, we now know when we'll get the Sony PlayStation 4. And specifically, that is going to be November 15th. Mark your calendars, in North America and November 29th in Europe. Of course, it's priced at $399, and so now we know that official launch date. They came out. You could plan accordingly. Beyond that, they talked a lot about the Vita. They dropped the price of the Vita to $199, slashing $50 off of it, and also repriced the memory cards, which basically took a relative dip, $5, $10. The 32 gigabyte having
made them only still ridiculously overpriced.
Yeah,
right. So the 4 gig is now $14.99 instead of $19.99. 8 gig $20 instead of $30. 16 gig $40 instead of $60, and 32 $80 instead of $100. So took a dip, but at the same time, their big play during the press conference was talking about the power of the Vita, its connectivity to the PlayStation 4, and they had some pretty impressive things in terms of just specific games for the PlayStation Vita platform, for the PlayStation 4, and they seemed like they really got their audience and what they wanted to give. One game in particular, Rhyme from Tequila Works, which is just the guys who made Deadlight, looked really, really good to me. But they didn't have as many headlines as Microsoft. They kind of just showed a consistent showing of games, and then it was like this big build-up. Everyone was waiting for the release date, and the rumor going in was that the console was going to launch in late October, which a lot of people thought would have been just the ultimate kind of trump card to play at Gamescom, especially when Microsoft didn't announce their release date, especially after the butt whooping that was E3, to come out and say, boom, we're going to be there at the end of October, so get ready. But they didn't do that. They released it. They're releasing it on the 15th and late November in Europe. So what do you guys think about Sony's presence at the PlayStation event for Gamescom? Did they do what they needed to do? And are you any more intrigued by the PS4 or less excited after the event?
I'm exactly where I was before.
That wasn't one of the options. You have to be more
or less.
Or less.
I suppose I'm slightly more interested just because we know the release date.
Yeah.
And now I can kind of start planning a little bit more definitively. But honestly, as opposed to the ass kicking they handed out at E3, I didn't feel like Sony did anything too awfully dramatic here. I felt like they did a good job, and certainly I think that the price drop on the Vita is a good thing, and I think that the interactivity they showed off between the Vita and the PlayStation, using it as like a remote play controller and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
they talked about that stuff. We knew that was coming, but I think playing that aspect up in conjunction with the price drop on the Vita is a very smart thing.
Yeah.
I would almost say that the biggest thing for me going through Gamescom was me beginning to think about, maybe I should invest in a Vita. I've talked before about how I really did like the Vita. When I played it, I thought it was a good console. There's enough games on it now that I probably would want to play through.
Yeah.
But it's just always that kind of question mark of, is there enough kind of entertainment experience in this device to justify the cost? Well, now they've lowered the cost, and because of the things it'll be able to do in conjunction with PlayStation 4 games, they've upped the amount of entertainment I can get on it. So I have to say that what I saw at Gamescom it does have me thinking about the Vita a little bit more than I was going into this. I wasn't really considering getting one prior to this. So I think as far as the release date goes, I agree that if they would have said like Halloween or something like that, I agree that would have really been a
over
much bigger deal. Yeah, it would have pushed it over the top, as opposed to the November 15th launch date.
Tony,
the thing that I think about that though is going to be really, really interesting, because these two systems are going to be going into the marketplace probably within a week of each other.
Yeah.
If you look at I think Kotaku and some other websites have they've done a little bit of work on this, and they just kind of lay out, all right, so here's all the possibilities of where Xbox could launch, and here's the reasons it makes less sense here and more sense over here. We're kind of thinking, like right now the rumor is like November 22nd. I say rumor. The speculation is that Xbox One will be launching on November 22nd in North America. And if that happens, if these two consoles come out within a week of each other, and all of the things being in play that we know about stay the same, it's going to be a really, really interesting holiday season to just see what eventually happens with the console war in its opening 6 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I actually got to be honest. I wasn't, I'm going to do what I did to Brent, though. This didn't really change anything too much for me in terms of how I felt about
That wasn't
Sony.
one of the options, Tony.
I know. I will say, glad to know the date. I think it is just pretty much a given that the Xbox is going to be coming out a week after the PS4. I will say, I do think that Sony has lost substantial momentum. I really got to be honest. I think that this is because they haven't done anything. Because
I don't
they
see
blew
that.
their entire wad. Hey, I'm telling you, I work in a retail environment, and I'm gonna be honest with you. There has been almost no interest after that initial huge, wave. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
Huge
they
wave
have
for
a
the PS4
million pre-orders though already. It's kind of like
but the
hype was
Xbox
so
One
high.
has almost double. Okay,
Oh,
they
I didn't know
literally in major markets the Xbox One has significantly larger pre-orders.
Wow.
I'm telling you, they have slowly and steadily. That's why I keep kind of saying I think Microsoft maybe made the smarter play long term. Not saying that they necessarily planned it exactly like this, but I think they probably did plan to let out details slowly, every week or two leading up to the launch, because I think that kept it a little more in people's minds. They started off really bad, which kind of almost gave them this opportunity to redeem themselves. I think people see Sony as being almost a little too cocky now. There's a certain the little comments that they kind of made at their press conference, kind of saying hey, we've kind of stayed the same because we made the right decision up front. I agree, but I got to be honest, their initial lineup is, I think, weaker than the Xbox. I think had they come out like what you're saying, that to me would have been a really all the choices they've made up to this point have put them right where they need to be. And if they had announced at the system coming out basically almost a month before the other system, I think that could be a very big game changer. Because
there's still
people
got time to change their minds.
Well,
but
Microsoft. They're not going to change at this point, they've made that date. They're not going to change it.
Yeah, I agree.
Microsoft has not announced their date.
Yeah.
This could be the smartest thing they ever do. They could release it, like you say, maybe around the end of October. Say, hey, so I know we've had some trouble, whatnot. Why don't you just pop out there on Halloween Eve and pick up your new Xbox One?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, people that were going to buy a PS4 will be hard pressed not to sort of be shoot, man, it's 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really want. It's people. Gamers are like that, especially early adopters. So I don't know. I got to be honest. I did, and the Vita stuff, in my opinion, was just cool. The Vita stuff's kind of cool. Nothing special. I mean, they basically let you know that you're going to be able to use it like a Wii U. Nobody wants that. So,
but the difference is that you're talking about games like the games we're talking about. So being able to play Assassin's Creed and Destiny and all these and Thief, and that to me is very appealing.
That nobody really cares. I agree. I know you guys think it's cool. I don't think it is the coolest feature that is out there.
Well, I will say this, and this as somebody who is one of my, I've said it a million times on this show. I'm fascinated by marketing. I love the way that things have the opportunity to be presented and the way companies choose to do it. You can have a 50% off sale, or you can have buy one get one free. Generally, it's the same exact thing for the bottom line. It's just how you present it. And in my mind, they discounted the Vita by $50 and then talked up how important it was. I do think that it was kind of a missed opportunity, because if they're willing to take a $50 off the Vita, that was an equal opportunity to say, this is how important the Vita is and what you get with it and all the things that we're doing that's great. One of the things coming into Gamescom was a rumor of a bundle with the PS4 and the PS Vita. So they theoretically could have just tacked on $200 to the price and said you get the Vita and the PS4 and maybe a PSN Plus subscription or something digital that they could have thrown in as well. I think that would have been great for them, because I still think there's this gap, this separation between getting the Vita to where they think it should be and where it is in reality. But I do think that there's a lot of features and functionality as time goes on that make it more and more appealing to me. With, everyone has different lifestyle, everyone has different, wants and needs as in terms of being a consumer. But the idea of actually playing a game on the screen and then having it be that second screen experience and taking it away, going upstairs and playing it, that is something that would be very appealing to me with a lot of these next-gen games. So that is something that I think they kind of missed an opportunity on, but not by much. They're basically doing that. You could basically get it for that same cost. It's just they're bundling it for you and maybe throwing in something extra. But aside from that, I think they did what they needed to do.
Good. Yeah, I think that Sony's. I kind of agree with you in this sense. I think that the momentum that Sony had, in some cases, was a result of them doing a really good job. And in other instances, it was a result of Microsoft doing a really, really bad job. Mm-hmm. So I think that what we've kind of seen in Gamescom is Sony not doing anything, is doing something solid but not particularly spectacular, and Microsoft doing something markedly better than what they've done up till now.
Yeah.
Now, how this shakes out.
Microsoft's made the most strides, but they've come from so far behind.
That's exactly right. They had the most ground to gain back.
Yeah.
Also,
that's interesting though, TG. I didn't know that with the pre-release.
I'm telling you, buddy. It's exactly how I said that 1 month later, the impact of all those decisions was essentially nullified. Like all that stuff, that initial, like, don't get me wrong. There's still people are interested in the PS4. The problem is, it's not different enough, and people are starting to see that, like, hey, I can play basically all these games on both systems. There's not really much, all the games I really want to play. This system over here has a handful of exclusives that right now not showing me anything all that great. Over here, not like amazing, but I think markedly better. And potentially, I mean, you got Halo, you got Titanfall, you got some other pretty big titles versus just the knowledge that we will get something from the Naughty Dog team, the knowledge that we will get something down the road on the PS4 side of things. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's not coming, and I'm not saying it probably won't be amazing. Hey, I'm more excited just personally for the PS4. But I gotta be honest, I think people love the people will, I think if they're just getting the games that are on both systems, most people are leaning towards the Xbox because they do think that they saw in general that better online experience and things like that I think that they believe they are still going to get. I think people do still have a little apprehension of Sony on the kind of, they like what they're saying, but they're still pretty comfortable with this other side of things. Well, and as soon as Microsoft made all their changes, and people were easy to forgive. And
they don't quite realize that there's going to be a supercomputer watching them all the time in their living room. They're not.
Let's be honest. The PS4 is going to too, or their phone. Nobody. Sadly, that is not important enough to Americans right now, which is ridiculous. But they don't give a shit. And so, like, all the stuff that really that is kind of like let's be honest. Microsoft's almost kind of done another 180 to come back and say, hey, what about some of these features we said we were going to take away? Maybe we'll bring them back. And people are like, you know what? Now that actually sounds kind of cool. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's very weird, but I do think, I really will say, I think the tides have turned pretty not insignificantly towards the Xbox side of things, when I really think Sony could have done a handful of things. They made a huge turnaround at E3, and they could have really made that, sealed that in stone with a few changes, which I think could have been things like, frankly, I think they should have had a little bit better launch lineup, just period. And I think that they could have killed it with a much earlier release date. If they'd done it a month early, I think you actually could say that would have been a very significant roll of the dice on their part.
Well, we'll see what happens, in the coming months and what actually shakes out. But I kind of agree with you in the sense that I think that if adoption rate was only based on current installed base going into the next console, Microsoft does have an advantage in that they have a larger install base than Sony does right now. Mm-hmm. So Sony, and it's kind of ironic to think about it in this way, given all the things that's been happening. But Sony came into this as the underdog. Sony came into this as the company in third place, and really needed to prove something, and they kind of did that early on, and they really put Microsoft back on their heels. So Sony has got to kind of win people to their camp that they didn't have before, and I can totally kind of see how Microsoft is able to weather these things with the sheer numbers of people that they had, but whether or not that translates into like a really solid victory immediately, and then like how it evolves over the course of the first year into both of these consoles is going to be interesting. I don't think it's as cut and dry as Microsoft has 2 million pre-orders, Sony has 1 million, Microsoft wins. I think that there's a big struggle ahead, and that as the Halos and the Titanfalls and the infamous Second Sons and the Naughty Dogs, as those titles begin to come out and the big guns really get into the fight next year, I think that it's going to. I think it's going to be all about.
It'll be all about.
Think about the other announcements that happened, though. You're getting exclusive content on FIFA for the Xbox. You're getting exclusive and early content on Call of Duty, on Battlefield, on almost every huge major title. There's significant content, either whether you're getting it much earlier or in some cases content that's just only going to be available on Xbox One. There's almost none of those exclusives, at least not on the big titles.
You're right. Call of Duty content's coming 2 weeks early. Microsoft wins.
No, hey, I'm just saying.
You're saying it's that simple, and I just saying that I'm not ready.
saying. You see, that's where you're not listening to me. I'm not saying this. I'm saying.
Why would I listen to
Sony
you?
has not. Sony has not made it that simple. You guys are going to this. I think thinking that Sony really has the upper hand. I'm saying I think it's a lot more even.
That's
than,
exactly
than
what I just said. I just said that I think it's a lot more even.
At the end of the day, though, you are both losing sight of the fact that it's whatever they do, it's all about the Wii U.
I think it's probably the one thing that we can agree is probably not
not accurate.
Going to be happening.
All right, guys, we are here near the end of our skirmish, but first we have our battle cries of the week, and put my my battle cry here first. And I got to admit, I did something I really didn't think that.
Hold on. I want to savor this. Okay, go.
All right. Yep. Something I didn't think I would be doing anytime soon, if ever. But I have actually supported my first Kickstarter.
Oh, it's your first time.
How about that?
Popped my Kickstarter cherry.
What do you
But I will be honest. I've talked. I kind of give Brent a hard time. I've just not that I don't think there's any purpose in him. I do kind of find him a little. I got to be very sure about something before I kind of put my I'm a little less take risk kind of guy. But I saw a project that honestly is something I really really love and really. I was like kind of blown away. I was like, yep, that's something I want to support. It's I'm a huge fan of pinball games, like real pinball games and like video pinball and stuff. And one of my favorite games of all time was the Pro Pinball series, and specifically Time Shock. It was just one of my favorite titles. It was very cool because it was computer only video game pinball, but it was so you can only play it on computer, but it was made to be just like a actual pinball machine table. Like up until then, most computer pinball games were like pinball games that you played like just on a computer screen. Like they didn't really, they had flippers and they had, the different things, but they kind of didn't look like games that could be really like existing. They look like they were made for a computer. Whereas this looked like you could, mold the plastics and like, physically make it into a machine. And it was just so fun, so awesome. Anyway, so the team that made that game originally, way back in the day, is now putting together a Kickstarter where they're going to redo it with all new, just make it look massively, more realistic and, new physics and all kinds of new features on current gen hardware, and it just looks really, really awesome. So I supported it, did the one where I'm going to get the beta testing and stuff, and
nice.
Hopefully it gets funded. I think now it's a little over 75% to the way there, and I think it's got 3 more weeks, maybe a little give or take.
Yeah, it seems like they're on track to do it.
Yeah, they're definitely on track to do it. I just, it's one of those things, I guess, you never know if it's kind of front heavy or back heavy, if it's going to make it. But I think that it's probably going to go through. And the one reason I really like to support it, because it was being done by the same team the guy that created the original series. So it's kind of like one of those, like it's not like an homage or like because I know there's some of those that are sort of like people that love the series are making something new. But this is one of those where it's like the team that originally worked on it is wanting to work on the new one. So very, very cool for me.
And pretty reasonable goal that they've had, 40,000 pounds or whatever, I guess.
Well, it's 40,000 pounds, which is about $62,000. So I mean, it's it's definitely
reasonable.
Compared to some of the projects out there, I think pretty reasonable. So
definitely worth flipping out about.
Cool, man.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool, and I called. It was funny.
You missed the flipping out pun.
No, I assure you, we did not miss it.
Actually, I did. I will say I missed that. That's actually kind of funny. But anyway, I called Brent and I tweeted him because I knew he would get a kick out of it.
Right, and I did.
Anyway.
Congratulations, though. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, no, it was very cool. And I'll be honest with you, it really did kind of open my eyes to now I sort of get where he's coming from. Like, now I kind of understand, like, okay, once I see a project that I get and that I really like, now it kind of makes more sense to me. So, cool thing. Anyway, sorry I went on too long. Brent, what is your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week goes out to the recently announced expansion
Yes.
For XCOM Enemy Unknown. It is called XCOM The Enemy Within.
Yeah.
And it is going to be coming out actually just a little bit ahead of the PlayStation 4 launch. It's going to be coming out, I think, the 12th of November. And this expansion is kind of interesting in that it is basically added content to the core game. So as opposed to playing a separate sort of set of missions or something like that, basically you're going to play through XCOM Enemy Unknown, but there's going to be all of this added content that is now going to be in the game. There's going to be new maps, there's going to be new game mechanics, there's going to be new ways that you can upgrade your soldiers, there's genetic upgrades, and now there's this mech system.
Looks pretty cool, too.
Yeah, it does, and it's really going to fundamentally change the gameplay. So it's really kind of just an interesting take on expanding the game, in that it's going to change so much of what XCOM has been, and it's going to fundamentally change the strategies that you've probably developed if you play a lot of XCOM, which I do. So this is going to be available on PC and Mac for $30, and on 360 and PlayStation 3 for $40, in a Commander edition that is going to include a copy of XCOM Enemy Unknown. So if you haven't jumped on this yet, and you're on the console, then you're going to get the opportunity to snag all of this for a pretty reasonable price. So
Plus
anyway,
the previous DLCs, the Slingshot and the other stuff right?
That's correct. The what do they call it? The Elite Soldier Pack or something like? Yeah, I think it's something like that. Anyway,
super duper soldier guy pack.
Right. So anyway, that's my battle cry. I love XCOM Enemy Unknown, as I've talked about many times. It's a fantastic game. And I'm really looking forward to
Wait, so why are you allowed to talk about one game so much and how much you love it, but every time I do it, it's like, oh, here we go.
Because
he's talking about brothers.
The game that I chose to get behind didn't suck.
Oh, Dishonored sucks? Brothers sucks?
I'm glad you brought up Dishonored, Daniel, because I wanted to let you know that I made an entry in my calendar a few days ago for November 12th, 2013, and I've got the entry right here. It says, start new game on Dishonored.
Why November 12th?
Well, I just picked that date. Like, I just thought, like, oh, this would be a good day to do it.
Why don't you just do it when we get off the friggin' podcast? Do it now.
Amazing. It's amazing that XCOM is going to trump it yet again.
Come on.
Anyway, XCOM The Enemy Within. That's my battle cry this week.
It was a good one. I appreciate it. And Daniel, if you could you not keep bringing up that same game?
I love how people are tweeting you when they beat Dishonored, Tony, and then you're having to retweet to me. Like, don't tell me, tell Daniel.
Yeah, no, I will have to give Cole credit there. He sent me that text. I'm like, hey, don't tell me, tell Daniel. No, I don't give a shit about the game. No, I'm just kidding. DK, what is your battle cry this week? I bet
I'm a big fan of Bethesda. I love the Elder Scrolls universe. There's a lot to talk about Elder Scrolls Online, and we just found out recently that the business model behind this upcoming MMO, highly anticipated MMO, is going to be that of the traditional subscription model, which came as a big surprise coming out of Gamescom. But the reason basically behind it is as described by ZeniMax Online's general manager Matt Fuhrer, is that basically the way they've built this game is to grant complete access to everyone. And what they said was that the way the Elder Scrolls universe works, it's all about exploration, it's all about developing your character, it's all about doing all these things. This is the MMO that lets you do that with friends. So they really took into consideration that a free-to-play model would probably have to limit that type of experience, something that they feel is unique to their franchise. And they announced that they're doing this traditional model. Last time we saw this, Star Wars The Old Republic, it did not go so well for them. But in a nutshell, the way it's going to work is that you purchase the game at retail, and then you're basically going to pay about $15 a month after the first 30 days. So you purchase the game, you get 30 days, and then after that, if you want to keep playing, $15 a month. But it's unlimited access to everything that's in the game. They feel like it's a lot more straightforward. The reason why it's my battle cry, say what you want, I don't know, whether or not it's the thing that the gamers actually, would prefer if they want them to do the free-to-play model. What I like is that they've really thought about their franchise. They've thought about what would be the best experience for their end user and this long-running franchise to enter into the MMO sector, and they kind of bucked this trend of having to go free to play, and this also kind of resets the bar in a way that says, you know what, you don't have to be forced into that if you don't want to. So I give them props for making that decision. If whether or not it pans out for them, I don't know. Personally, you know me, I'm not a huge MMO type of guy, but if there was an MMO that I would play, it would probably be this one, because I love the Elder Scrolls universe. So props to them, though, for sticking to a decision that they feel is in the best interest of their franchise and its fans. So that's my battle cry this week, going out to Bethesda, and I'm interested to see how it turns out.
I am too. This one is definitely kind of off my radar.
Cool.
Yep. Looks very cool. Brent, I think you have our member battle cry this week. You wanna?
I certainly do, and it comes from
words that are on the
A piece of virtual paper.
Yep.
I do indeed, and it comes from David Peters. And he
Hi,
says,
David.
Hello, all.
Hi, Peters.
Hi. I've been listening to Epic Battle Axe for the past 2 years, but have never made an account until last night, only because of the latest member battle cry that you all discussed that was over MMOs.
Ooh.
You all agreed that you were waiting for an MMO that had more intimacy, and you hit on all the points that we all share. I don't care for the hundreds of people in town shouting to sell things and the lack of interactivity in the world. Well, I just wanted to say that such a game that battles those issues is in development, and being developed by none other than the granddaddy of MMOs and RPGs, Richard Lord British Garriott. The game, Shroud of the Avatar, brings back interactivity, that was nice, Daniel, to the world while adding a more intimate multiplayer experience, or at least that's what their pitch is. Fixing the issues of overpopulation in the world, but being able to connect to everybody, they re-added the idea of dual-scale maps like old RPGs, where every time you load in and out of a city, you'll be recycled back into another instance with another group of people. They've got some servers running in the background that'll help pair people up with people they know, but either way, this specific game, which is technically not a full MMO, but neither a single-player RPG, hopes to bring RPG back into MMO RPG. P.S. This game is supposed to be completely playable offline if you wanted, which hopefully hints at the depth of the single-player experience it may hold.
Well, welcome, Peter. Very well written, I think.
His name is David, but keep talking.
Oh, sorry. I petered out there.
Jimmy, I'm going to call you Mark. And
Well written,
your battle
poorly
cry.
read, I guess.
Welcome, David. I think is a good battle cry because, again, like our conversation about MMOs on the heels of the announcement of EverQuest Next, is that I think people want to scale back and go into that more intimate realm. Intimacy is always a good thing. As Tony and I know, we were roommates for a long time.
Let's just leave the conversation there and not say anything more, please.
Sure. So anyway,
We had
my
separate
point-
rooms.
my point, though, is that I think that's what people want. And again, I think Elder Scrolls speaks to that, too. It's more about kind of adventuring with your friends in the world of Elder Scrolls, taking something like a Skyrim and saying, let me do that with my friends. So, yeah, I think this is kind of the next
itself
wave.
is like an amazing thought, an amazing possibility.
If that's what it is, then I'm totally sold, because that would be totally awesome. And I think that's what they're trying to make. So, yeah. Good job, Peter. Or David Peters.
Mark. Jim John.
All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for listening through that.
I told you at the top of the episode it was going to be this way.
For Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, I didn't read the last part of that thing before there, so cry havoc. And I've been up for a long time today. I just want to point this out. I was up till midnight last night, and I had to be back at work at like 5:30 this morning.
There's not a lot of time.
Man, strip joints open that early?
No.
Oh.
Prostitution brothel houses
On the other hand,
are open. I'm just practicing for Grand Theft Auto 4.
Yeah.
that's right. I can't wait to run over that Mirage ramp. It's going to be.
It's not a Mirage. Yes, it is.